Yeah, hi everybody. I hope you had a fun and productive week as we journeyed through the land of Kantianism on the one hand and utilitarianism on the other. So we had two very different ethical theories. Okay, Kantianism being a form of moral absolutism and utilitarianism being a form of moral relativism. Okay, absolutism and relativism. So, for example, the Kantians would say that lying is wrong in all times and in all places. Okay, absolutism. And the utilitarians would say that lying, in some situations would be, the right thing to do, and in other situations it would be the wrong thing to do. So it's both right and wrong depending on the situation, right? Okay. So, long story short, the Kantians are going to root, the rightness or wrongness of an act in practical reason, okay? And there's just something about, the nature of the act itself that leads to its rightness or its wrongness. Whereas for the utilitarians, it's all about consequences, okay? Will this act bring about, a great good for a great number of people, as Bentham and Mill would put it? It's focused on consequences, and that's why utilitarianism is oftentimes called consequentialism. Whereas for the Kantians, they're not concerned about consequences, they're concerned about the nature of the act itself. And we just have to look to practical reason, Kant's term, to find out, if lying is right or wrong, or if stealing is right or wrong. Okay, we just have to do a test, and we basically just have to, step back and ask ourselves, whatever it is I'm about to do, like say lying, whatever it is I'm about to do, would I want this to become a universal law? Okay, so imagine making lying a universal law. It is good to lie, or everybody should lie when it suits them. Just like stop and think about that for a second, and then just go down the list. With stealing, okay, with murder, okay. The world wouldn't make any sense, okay. If everybody lied, then the idea of truth would disappear. Like if everybody stole, the idea of private property would disappear. Okay, the world would just be this ugly place where there's just weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, and so Kant's ethics has oftentimes been called a secularized version of Christianity, because whereas the Christians root right and wrong in the nature of God and in God's nature, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. Kant basically puts all this in practical reason. We come up with the same conclusions, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, or I ought, I ought, I ought, based on the dictates of practical reason. Okay? So that's where the categorical imperative comes from. Okay, that inner sense of I ought to do my duty. Okay, I ought not to lie, I ought not to steal, I ought not to murder, and so on. Okay? So a lot of fun stuff we can do with these two ethical theories, Kantianism on the one hand and utilitarianism on the other. Both are very big today, okay, especially in the modern West, specifically utilitarianism, okay? I'm sure you got up this morning and thought, do I want to go to class today and submit that paper? Or do I, want to go to work today? I want to show up and do my job. You might have gotten out your scale, and started weighing things out, the pros and the cons of, going to class or going to work. Well, that's utilitarian thinking, and that's very big in America today. Okay? So, as with every ethical theory, there are some strengths and weaknesses, okay? All right? We saw that with divine command theory, with virtue theory, with social contract theory. If there's a perfect ethical theory out there, I would like to know what it is. If it's watertight and it's going to work for everybody and we can all agree on something like that, send it my way. I want to know what it is, because we're going to put it in the syllabus, okay? All right, so everybody's doing great in the class, and reach out to me if you have any questions, and let's all keep moving onward and upward, not only here, but also in life. Have a great week.